We looking or something. The track is Sylosis Eclipsed. Where do I even begin with this? It's more thrash basically from Sylosis. But it's pretty insane, and there's parts about this I really like. The composition is definitely very different. Sounds, yeah, sounds like you imagine it be. But it's also very heavy and very interesting. As usual, guitar parts really good, bass, not bass. The drums really good as well. But the vocals, for once I noticed these, because I don't often listen. There's, particularly with like Sylosis, it's not anything against a vocalist, it's just sometimes I'm more comprehensive of vocals than others. It's a bit like a System of a Down situation where I can understand the vocals there, but compared to something like, I don't know, something else with like screamy sort of vocals, I'm trying to think what ones as well. I don't know, that Bring Me Horizon maybe, the early stuff is somewhat hard to understand at times, although it's a bit more clear though actually, so not the best comparison. The point is, in this one, there is quite a few great things going on with the vocals from what I can notice. It's quite melodic, and there's also a mix of like scream and harmony. I don't know what to call it, like clean rather. It just sort of impacts things, I guess. So it's like different from that perspective. But it's certainly, you can hear it at times. I noticed it actually in how was it? I'm thinking of. But I think it's the bridge, the harmony, but the vocals just take a very interesting route. It goes from like dark sort of screamy to like extremely fucking loud Rob Halford, the high pitched rather, sort of Rob Halford sort of scream vocals, which I've never heard before from, I'm assuming it's Josh doing the vocals, it might not be. Again, I've never heard that from Josh, and it's pretty insane. It's an untapped area, I think, that he's not really used in many other songs, at least to memory. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, that took me off guard listening to it. I couldn't quite believe it myself. But yeah, I love this track. It's really good, it's really fun to play. It's one of the most fun tracks to play. Yeah, anyway, let's move on to the first topic. You know, it's kind of rare that some online advice actually works. At least to me it is. Because I've done a lot of things that need troubleshooting and it never works out, but never is it really an IRL thing. It's usually computers, but this time it's actually IRL. A while ago I bought my own saucepans and frying pans just because I didn't like how my housemates would clean up stuff. It's very lazy, they don't always use washing up liquid, and also the way that one of my housemates just leaves things to fester as well, it's just, ugh. I'm not touching anything like that, and I've basically got my own cutlery set in place as well because of that. But it's just gross, and I got my own, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll look after it better than the other ones, because the other ones were showing signs of wear and tear. And even without trying, mine's still got some sort of shit on it. It's still got like scratches and stuff without even me directly damaging it. So it's not even scratches at that point. It's just general wear and tear, which is bizarre. Because I would have thought scratches would mean scratching, but not in this case. And then one of the things that kept happening after that is the way I was cooking, it seemed to make things stick to it, depending on how sort of cold the item was. It usually only was the cold items. So it'd be like, say, a frozen Beyond Burger, for example. Very commonly stuck to the pan. And this was just annoying, because you have to peel it off somehow, you have to stop it from sticking and stuff. It was just getting really frustrating. And eventually that led to scratches, because what else are you supposed to do? It even stained it as well. So there's stain and scratch. So I wasn't sure what to do. I thought maybe this is just a normal thing for pans. maybe they start as non-stick and then they become sticky pans. And then I looked it up, and it turns out I've been cooking the wrong way this whole time. Because what you're supposed to do, apparently, which I didn't even know, was preheat pans and oil. I basically put in oil as a preheating, it's just faster, and a way for it to be like smoky. That's usually when you need to turn it down and obviously put your things in, instead of it spits everywhere in case it's cold. But this actually ended up saving me so much fucking time, and also the hassle of peeling stuff off. And in the 2 times I've done this so far, I think 3 actually, if I consider a saucepan, but it doesn't usually stick. Yeah, basically it's not really ever happened, which is weird, but it doesn't stick, and that's the main thing. So the device actually works. Now what? I've never had this before. Why is it happening? I don't understand that. It's bizarre. So yeah, one of the problems solved, which is good. There's still other problems. I can't remember what though. Not with the pans, luckily. It's just other things. But I can't remember. Well, either way, it's good. And it's quite a relief as well when something actually works. Because I've been struggling with shit like that for God knows how long. And that's because it's such a niche issue, it just piles up and stuff. And now that I know how to actually cook, it's a bit better, a bit less risky and stuff, so it has overall benefits to it. I think there are some things that can, some good that can come of it rather. And just, yeah, it shows that trying advice sometimes just works out. I was a bit unsure at first, and it wasn't even like the first bit of advice, which I found weird. I'm pretty sure it was like the second or third. I can't remember what I found, like what site it was, and the exact advice. But definitely cooking it, it seems to expand the steel. There seems to be a scientific explanation. But basically the steel like cools down and doesn't expand or something, and it's sort of not in use, and so it enables it to obviously like just keep its like weird stickiness problem, which I previously thought it didn't do. I can't remember, it's so long ago, at least over a year ago now. But yeah, I don't know what to say here. Just keep trying different bits of advice for that sort of thing. You might find something good out of it. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. Next topic is speaking ill of the dead? Question mark. So, this is something that came up on Blue Sky recently, and apparently there's someone who worked for Trump who was opposed to him previously, who died. And you know, I've seen a mixed response from this, and I'm not sure exactly what the death is. Maybe looks like the guy's old as well, so probably old age, maybe. Although hopefully, actually, that's probably better, to be honest. That's probably the better way to go to. But whatever it is, it really gets me thinking about what it means to speak ill of the dead. And I started thinking about this upon some of these posts, like people saying, oh, you shouldn't speak ill of the dead, you shouldn't speak ill of this person, you shouldn't be like, oh, for this person who just died, regardless of whether you agree with them or not. To be fair, if you agree with them, you probably know them somewhat. So yeah, I'm trying to think what to say here. I think it is a very interesting scenario because I think there are reasons to speak ill of the dead. In certain cases, I think there is definitely a thing for that. But I will say it's kind of like, at the same time, it's also not in great taste, always. Not always, at least. And I think when it comes to this topic, when it's someone you dislike, it's like, okay, maybe you just don't care as much. I remember when I was previously getting into politics and, I saw the political violence stuff and then Charlie Kirk being assassinated. It was like, that's insane. And, these are two different extremes possibly, but it's worth speaking about either way. And the general view of Charlie Kirk is he just wasn't a nice person to anyone. He agreed with child killing in wars and obviously Israel. He was pretty much corrupt from the get-go, and he could also probably backstab his own family, let's be honest, judging by the things he was saying. And ironically, he seems to be backstabbed by his own wife. And that's the weird thing with this. Like, Charlie Kirk was such a horrible person. I don't think anybody really shed a tear for him, even the people on his side, even Republicans, and it really goes to show. But we also can't disregard the fact that he's just done so many horrible things in this regard. Again, endorsing child killings in Israel and being such a big person, rather a big supporter to Trump. And I remember things about him discussing veganism, I believe, and he just had a shit opinion on it. He didn't have anything good, anything worthwhile to say, so he had no clue. And he often spoke like a know-it-all, and because he was like young and stupid, which he was, it was like people sort of knew this about him, but that was sort of the appealing aspect to a lot of Republicans. And they were sort of like, oh, I'm glad that there's a young person fighting for what we're fighting for, whatever it is. The truth there was, that is not mine. I'm not making things up, that is literally what they think. So it's just absolutely insane. But I think when it comes to speaking ill of someone like Charlie Kirk, it's not very bad really, it's not viewed as badly. And it may kind of seem like it's in bad taste, but you have to remember, if it was the other way around, if this was someone on the left doing something like this, like Charlie Kirk was, but obviously for progressive left, or just socialism, they would have had a fucking field day, harassing and mocking everyone involved in that. And it just leads you to wonder, like, what's the fucking point? Why be nice to people who wouldn't be nice back to you? So what's even the point? Then, what's even the point? So yeah, speaking of the dead, because frankly, these situations we're in now, and especially in the times we're in, I think everybody deserves to be sort of treated the way that they treat others. I've always been someone who pushed kindness first, and I still do. But another form of kindness happens to be literally, well, speaking of the dead, and also wishing people dead. It sounds weird, but that is actually true. I think we all know who we want dead. That's something every person in the world holds very much close, and I think we all know the initials of the name. There's probably a J in there, probably a D, and there's probably other letters as well. But, that's the point. I think the hatred can define us, it can help fuel us as well. And that's why we feel that way. It's because we've been wronged, and for those people who wrong us, if it's, again, having deadly consequences, then there's a difference. If it's something like, oh, you're just firing shit at me, no, that's not deadly. That's quite trivial, but you should fire shit back in that case. If they're willing to just, again, kill people for no apparent reason, and have no regard for their well-being, then, why even treat them nice? I had this discussion before, actually, with someone. It was on a Discord, I think, and we were discussing, like, sort of, I think it was like Promised Neverland or something, that manga, because it's better as a manga, not the anime. The anime's shite, but the manga was really good. And I sort of liked Emily's approach in that. Emily being one of the main characters rather. But her approach was just trying to convince people to go from like obviously this evil, twisted, greed sort of driven motive to someone who's just kind and treats everyone with respect, even if they do have to eat them on sight. I think that was the ending, I can't remember. But sort of thinking about that in terms of like how inspirational it is, because that's kind of what I was doing at that point. I was wishing that people as bad as them could actually change, as these, or rather monsters as bad as them in this story, could actually change, and also applying that to people. Sort of wishing that they themselves could change, and I was confronted with the question before, like, if you had the chance to off then would you? And I of course answered no. And sort of I was asked why. And I kind of said the same thing that I'd said before anyway. I said that it just wasn't really worth it. Because you have to try and convince them somehow, because everyone has some sort of objective morality, and I do think it's true. Like, we all experience pain and we don't want it. We don't want pain. I think that desire should drive us to do better, to do the right thing. But, as you can tell, it does not exactly go that way. So my weirdo fucking housemate is seeing a fucking recycling bin which isn't even full. Fucking dumbass. Yeah, but basically that question came up, and I thought about it, because I didn't really dismiss it immediately, and instead, like, would you, but no, the response was, well, killing them would prevent many deaths, and what do you know, they're right. Yeah, this is back when Biden was in presidency. To think of this is just insane, and how right they were. And it's just crazy to think about. Like, what the fuck? But yeah, truth be told, if something did happen, then we would have been prevented all these issues. But even then, with someone else in charge, it's going to be the same situation. And eventually, you sort of wish that happened to them as well. But obviously, as times have changed now, I feel like we're more of an extremist society than we've ever been. About 10 years ago, everyone needed to think about something like political violence as being a necessity, but now we do. Because everyone's in so much fucking danger and so much discourse around it. There's just no way of telling. Eventually we're going to have like worldwide sort of coups and I don't know what to call it, like upstaging, I guess, where people get so fucking fed up of the shit that's happening and start to literally like stage these coups again, sort of backfire them, and literally start to get rid of the people who've done this, who've caused so much pain and suffering. Yeah, that's literally it. Yeah, that's like the insanity of it. I think we're in a difficult situation regarding that. Like, what do we even do actually? And it's the same thing as before. I think people need to sort of take the risk in a sense. And again, speaking of that, just go back to that now. I think it's fine, because I think it's the same reason we speak well of the dead. Because the opposite matters here too, and that was one of the things I saw on Blue Sky briefly. Because we appreciate some people who've died. That happens, and it's often sad. And it's the reason why we're silent. It's not just because of saying like, oh, they're a great entertainer, it's because they're good people. When that happens, obviously it's heartbreaking. When it comes to bad people, obviously we don't really care. It's just like, it's dead, good riddance, let's go on with our lives. With other people, they actually have an impact. And, you know, could you say the same for Trump? Could you say the same for Netanyahu? No. Could you say the same for Putin? No. Nobody fucking can. There is no such thing as holding these people, war criminals, in high regard. Nothing. So whether or not they're alive, it just doesn't fucking matter. And people worrying about this whole thing of like looking bad to others, it doesn't fucking matter again. You have to understand that the people out there who defend them, who defend war criminals, are the same people who are on the side of child rapists, on the same side as felons, on the same side as anyone sort of in a very fucking fucked up situation, or is just fucked up. Again, you have to know who you're arguing against, and those people, they don't really deserve mercy. Admittedly, I've got a sort of weak heart when it comes to seeing certain situations, like if a dog gets hurt, if a child gets hurt, I'm sort of feeling heartbroken seeing it. But meanwhile, there's also the crap side of me, and it's just like, oh, okay. Well, it doesn't override anything though, which is good. And I think that's where I'll start to worry. But with other people, they just go the opposite. They let corruption take hold, and they just completely fuck up everything. They fuck up the world. I've seen so many Midwest safety and crime videos lately of similar things, like people really mentally ill just dying because they just decided to draw a gun towards police officers. And it's sort of like they kind of have to defend themselves because someone is about to kill them. And obviously in that situation the cops are more valuable to the suicidal person, which is a shame, but again, that's the way the world is. I wouldn't speak ill of the guy who got shot by the cops at all. I wouldn't even hold anything against the cops. It's a difficult situation. And that's kind of why I said before, you know, that police station hijacking, I would have just fucking risked going in there, the bluff of the woman pretending to shoot herself as if she would, but she's already gone that far, and I think it really shows a lack of competence by the police officers and the SWAT team. But the fact she's even gone that far means that she is hiding something and isn't actually being entirely truthful, which is why I think it's fucking ridiculous. And frankly, her safety is like the least of your worries. And it should be the safety of others affected by her fucking disruption. Like, this is the thing with the trolley problems. They're important for a reason. And I think we have to do like a minimal amount of harm as much as we can. And I think that's a good precedent to stand by when it comes to topics like this, or even just political violence. And the trolley problem in the case of like Charlie Kirk, admittedly, it had its upsides. One less arsehole dead. Positive. On the downside, they used it as fuel against the left. They used it as fuel against the progressive left and socialist. Which obviously isn't good. That's bad. And that often depends on also the popularity. So like Charlie Kirk was probably popular among people, but not entirely, I don't think. I think there were definitely Republicans that would have been like, oh, shut up, fucking Zoomer. But other people, it's not that simple. And yeah, again, looking at a trolley problem from an objective morality standpoint, the amount of things that Charlie Kirk enabled, it's horrific. He's done more crime than probably most Republicans have, just by virtue of what he's been preaching. And that's really important. We have to acknowledge that. Because if we don't, then we're not actually seeing them for what they really are, for who they really are. Whereas if you look at someone who's done something good for the world, let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of someone who was assassinated on the right side of history. I don't know, let's say, oh, actually that's a good one, Obama. Because he's actually had people try to assassinate him. But you know, if Obama was to be assassinated, that'd be terrible. Because even now that he's not a president. The thing is, he did good things for America, and that much is held in high regard. I've heard more about Obama than I have Biden. And if someone even assassinates him, we can't speak ill of him because he has actually done good for the world. Again, the trolley problem here. Shooting him is essentially choosing the worst option for America, assuming he was still a president. It would have been the worst option because everyone would have fucking suffered, and we wouldn't have had as good of a democratic leader, I don't think, in the US. So I think that's really important to acknowledge. So again, using hypotheticals here, we can see the issue. But let's even say it's probably someone else, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out another popular, maybe Bush actually. Bush, obviously, I think if he was somehow murdered before 9/11, we probably wouldn't have had 9/11. Like, there are conspiracies about it linking back to Bush, but, I can't be too certain, but either way, I think there would have been a positive outcome. Like, I hate to say it, but again, the trolley problem. It's not like we're dictating lives based on their sort of inherent value, it's just the things that they value that we're looking at. And when it comes to just corruption in general, these people are absolutely fucked, and the trolley problems, again, they always show that these people being out of the picture, out of the public frame, the ones that are corrupt, is always a benefit to humanity and to the country. That's why it's really important. Even like the UK situation, going to more of an extreme here. If we were to suddenly see that NF, or his initials here, or maybe even RL, were gone, or even just KS or AB, there's a trolley problem here. I'm not going to explain it again. But this is what I think of when it comes to how I value a person. It's not even just my personal preference, it's also about the world. Again, look back on when I said that people all have that sort of intent to see someone just no longer there, either alive or even just away from the position. If someone were to step down, like those people I mentioned, the initials, then people would be happy. There would be some good to come out of that. And obviously one of them has stood down, but it's leading on to the second version of that person, which is not a good person either. So you can see the problem here, and this is why we speak ill of the dead, the same way that we speak ill of like Hitler and stuff. Hitler was an awful person for everyone, really. It wasn't just the Jewish people and the people affected in the war, it was also the country. Because there are no doubt people who didn't want that, and they got silenced through his entire discourse and control of like the media and the narrative. Again, it was fucking horrible. We could speak ill of someone like that because he was awful. It could be the same said for anyone else today and anyone else even just a few years ago, a few decades ago. So yeah, basically the TLDR, speak ill of the ill, speak well of the good. That's basically it. And also use the trolley problem. So yeah, let's move on. Well, this came as a sort of shock, but in a good way. Yeah, so just when I think I know enough about PC hardware and what it does, it turns out there's more to it than that. And what I'm talking about is graphics cards. You might be thinking though, what is this even know? It's just a fucking graphics card, isn't it? Wrong. And I sort of knew this anyway from long ago. Because for the fact, I used to own a 670. Oh god, it's a meme. And it was a good graphics card, but it was kind of crap. Eventually I inherited some money, and then I used it to get a new GPU and a 970. it's a drastic upgrade, 3 more generations above, and higher power draw, but the problem is my other GPU kept kind of overheating. It wasn't visibly overheating, but I tracked the temperatures before, I think, and it wasn't good. So I did some research, and I found out that there are types of GPUs out there where they actively are extremely, what do you call it? They're just very well cooled, and I decided to get the coolest one, and it still runs. That's the crazy thing. It's an Inno3D iChill. It's a very niche card. I've obviously never seen anything like it, and I've never seen anything run like it either. And the benchmarks really do reflect that, I think. It is one of the coolest, ironically in temperatures, GPU cards there is. And it's crazy to me. Just the fact that it was so good with that cooling, it's just, wow. So for a long time I didn't really consider it, but because I didn't get an option before, well, from PC Specialist when I got this RTX 3070, they just said like, oh, do you want to pick a different GPU? Because I was planning to get a 3060 Ti. A weird fact actually, that was a thing. But they didn't have any in stock. So what ended up happening instead is I ended up getting a 3070 because that's what they had in stock. So that ended up happening, and I didn't know what GPU they'd give me because this was during the scalper crisis. And they were getting it straight from the manufacturer, luckily, but they were increasing MSRP, which was stupid. So I spent more on it than I probably should have. And I didn't know what I was getting, and it turns out I got Gigabyte Aorus. And I don't know where that stands on like cards. Let me see, RTX 3070 cards compared, because I want to see if anyone has done that comparison, because this is the thing. It turns out the types of manufacturers you get can impact it. And that does mean, literally, that you get different performances and different cooling. So there's something from O Technology comparing stuff apparently. Comparing RTX 3070 Ti? No, that's not it. It's not an RT 3070. I guess nobody's done that, but it doesn't surprise me because it's during a crisis. But I must have got a bad card because this one hasn't been great for me. I would say it's been overheating, but it has been quite warm. I think it's like, it reached peaks of about 78 or something, if I remember correctly, when I was tracking it, and I decided not to use the LCD screen, which is pretty cool. I've never had a GPU with a screen though. I don't really care. But that's the thing, it's quite a gimmick, because even though you could look, it's just one of those things, if it's overheating, you'd fucking know. You don't need to track it. All these coolers and stuff that have screens on it, unless it's aesthetics, it's absolutely pointless. You don't need it. And that's why I come in with this, and apparently I have to get RGB RAM now because they've run out of stock for non-RGB, which is weird. Well, RGB I guess, I'll go. But with GPUs, I'm getting the 9070 XT gaming. But there are different types, and they list 3 different types on PC Specialist, which each have some questionable design choices. I don't know what they mean with like different display ports and stuff, but there seem to be different types of like cooling and stuff, and it's, it's very different. So I looked at a video, Hardware Unboxed, and also they're on my subscription for this. But they compared like as many GPUs as they could in the RX 9070s. So I looked at it, it's like, holy crap, this is actually extremely detailed, and I forgot this was kind of a thing. There's so many different things to consider here with these cards. So they tested like 14 different cards here, and they've got all these different benchmarks towards the middle of the video. What did they test it on? I forgot to check that. 1 hour of F1, 4K, Antec Flux Pro, Ryzen 9800X, and an ambient room temperature. Okay. Yeah, that's quite important, but when you do the GPU temperatures, XFX Mercury, which isn't on there, it's at the top, and there's a Asus TUF, which is the top 51 at idle. Honestly, it's not the best one, because of the price, it's a bit shit, and then megahertz are quite important too, and RPM as well. That's just the fan speed I want to think about. Nothing to do with the fan speed, but the one that I'm looking at is the Sapphire Nitro Plus, because that seems to be one of the cards. It seems like it's going to be the one that pulls through for me from the listing. But then they do the hotspot, and all the XFX cards are at the top, but they have a frequency difference. And for some reason, the Mercury is the highest one for the frequency, but then you ignore that and you go to the Sapphire, the 83 for the Nitro Plus, which isn't great, admittedly. But I think I'd just rather have a faster card, I think, than better cooling. And given the difference is like 8 degrees difference, it's not that big of a deal. And even the Asus TUF Gaming, for the price, again, it's not really worth it, from what I can tell. And then there's a memory temp, which I'm not sure what this test is exactly. It's XFX Swift for some reason is that top again in the Prime, and the Nitro Plus about 88, which is not great. It doesn't seem good. And so at least the Swift is up there, so maybe, I don't know, the Swift might be a contender as well. But I'll admit the Sapphire Nitro Plus looks pretty cool from a visual perspective. Noise normalized about the same sort of results as idle. And under load, the Swift's still at the top, with enough. But the Sapphire Nitro is up there. I'm not sure how you do noise normalize in a computer exactly. That bit does confuse me a little, because it does kind of matter. But anyway, like, yeah, you've got different things here, but the Sapphire Nitro is at the top for the FPS benchmarks, which is very interesting. And the Swift is like almost at the bottom with a like 6 to 10 FPS difference, which is not great, in my opinion. But it seems like there is just a very niche thing here with video cards, which I wasn't aware of. I didn't really expect that video cards would have this much complexity. Like, how would they even be like this? It doesn't really make much sense. What the hell? It's just so strange to me. Yeah, like, I think for a card, again, it's looking like either the Swift or the Nitro Plus for me. Those seem to be the two best, and I'm not even looking for max performance. In fact, I'll be happy with like a 9060, but the problem is it's not up to date with the current AAA games, and even then, I want it to last as well. I kind of want these to work for as long as possible, and it's hard to pick a GPU that isn't fucking NVIDIA. So that's often a difficulty. Even then, like, you got the 16GB 9060, and I don't know. Even though I'm doing 1440p gaming at the same time, is it going to run that though? It's just difficult to decide what colour to get, and what are the options on this even? Oh, just gigabyte, okay. For the 16GB version. But even the lesser versions of the 9070, seemingly paying a lot extra for a bit of extra performance. And you can sort of cut that in half with some of the other cards. Like, there needs to be a really good sort of shootout with these. Because again, it's a niche, and then you have to figure out the cards and what they do. Yeah, we're still figuring things out. I'm not afraid to pay an extra monthly, but it's kind of one of those things. It's like, do I need it? Don't I? That's why I keep coming back to with this. But yeah, it's just frustrating, and as well, I'm also struggling to afford things as it currently stands. So I'm needing to do a lot of like research and make sure I've got what I need as well. So yeah, I don't know what to add, but it's essentially about it, I think, for this kind of topic. Again, it's not about making the best PC, it's just about making one that's optimal for my workflow and even the gaming that I do. Not even looking for like a 5090 performance here. Look at the top here. Just no point in that. It's just pointless to me. It's just not something I do. Gaming isn't a priority, but I do like to have the option. Anyway, let's move on. You know what? This may be the best argument I've heard for rather against Freeform, Tommy Robinson, Restore, just everyone involved in this shithole, cesspit of whatever you call this. It's also not politics, it's just hatred. But this is the best argument I've heard in quite a long time, and this came from a satire channel called Political Custard. I've been watching this channel for some time now. I saw it a year ago. I wasn't really paying much attention to it, but recently it's been sort of popping off, and I decided to just subscribe because why not? I think I sort of need to, because at this point you kind of need that. But what I found very interesting is it seems like the best argument here against stuff like this, this really stupid and broken politics, is literally what's said in this video about Tommy Robinson, apparently what progressives can learn from him. And the argument goes, as per Political Custard, once all the immigrants are gone, what then? Ask them what are they going to give you in response to, obviously, Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage, and just whoever's dealing with migration stuff. But it just goes for every party as well. It's kind of like they don't actually have a plan in these parties, and it really demonstrates the point in some sort of crazy way. But this is kind of the issue. Like, what are we doing exactly? Because this is exactly the problem. People are literally clinging on to this bullshit politics and believing everything that they say without any reason to believe them. And so we're not even getting to like a solid foundation when it comes to political discourse, and we're not even finding agreements because of this shit. And this is kind of why we have issues. It's why we can't figure things out, why we can't just set aside our differences and come together. It's because people are just really stupid. Obviously with migration, we've responded to that en masse at this point. And idiots choose to believe that what they believe is true because they think it's true. Because it's true. Like, yeah, that's literally their argument, because they don't have anything backing it, and if that's a straw man, provide the argument. That's what I want to know. And because they can't even provide an argument against that to prove that it's not even a straw man fallacy, it's absolutely ridiculous, and this is all they're doing. Everything they've been doing up until this point, and even just then, it's still going to continue, is literally a straw man fallacy. Do I need to say any more? Because that should just debunk the argument instantly. Full stop. There's nothing else to say. And yet, once again, we just seem to be ignored. everyone on the left seems to be fucking ignored for some reason because of what? Being woke, being young. Oh, what stupid fucking arguments. Yeah, it just has to be said. There are so many stupid arguments against the left and the progressive, when in reality there isn't any sort of bad arguments, not per se. There's definitely some questionable people that I'm not gonna lie, Apathetic, even though he seems like a decent guy. There are parts of him that are kind of shady in areas, and as well as the Green Party, like some members in the Green Party are like that. And I don't know enough about Lib Dems to criticise them, so it's hard to say. Although, I think they have made like weird things before, but I don't know, I can't quote it because I don't actually know what it is. Yeah, but this is the strangeness and whatever. Trying to think what else there was, because there is definitely other things. You know, this is the situation though. We cannot ignore this stuff. I think something needs to happen now rather than later. And there's kind of a struggle here. I really do think something needs to happen about this. We need to start seeing people answer for these literal crimes, because that's what this is. It's all hatred, but it's all fucking crime. And that's the thing that worries me. There just isn't any sort of argument against this, any valid argument. And it just fails. Every time. Just without fail. It's a failed argument. Whenever this shit comes up. Nobody can respond. What do I even say? It's just very tiring, and I hate to say it as well, but it's probably going to give people feel I don't care at this point. You know, I am sort of losing sleep over shit like this because I just worry. I worry that every day I wake up it's going to be like, oh, you're being evacuated from your house because climate crisis, because old idiots just can't really bother to do the research and understand these things, even though it's a very real issue. And it's killing them as well, like I should add that. But again, it's all the consequence of just not trying to educate yourself, and you end up burning yourself in the process. Sort of, as well as a term for that, if you can't stand the heat, then don't get in the way or something. It's just weird, and that sort of addresses all the consequences of that. Where that exactly comes from. So yeah, what do I even say? Trying to think what else there is. Nothing coming to mind. So yeah, I think that's kind of all I have to say. Honestly, again, this argument is really important. I think there is a need for this, and definitely very necessary. The world needs to change now, and otherwise we're just gonna repeat the mistakes of the past and just be shit. And we'll be eating shit for that matter. So, yeah. Anyway, let's move on. So, social noise. I can't remember if I didn't talk about that. I wanted to talk about this anyway. Apparently there's something passed in the UK about criticising some like Iran security thing, and that being like a bad thing, illegal. I didn't exactly understand it because they use all this fucking language I do not understand, and I don't know what this group is exactly, but apparently it's the same as before, where they can prescribe any group as being a terrorist organisation and immediately arrest you, confiscate things and stuff. And it's the same thing again, to say. when you silence criticism, you don't make way for change. And we need change as a society, we need it as a culture, we need it politically. Because if we kept with the same things every fucking day, every fucking time, we would be miserable as fuck, and we are. In fact, it happens to America. One of the most blatant places where this happens on a nearly daily basis, because they can't change the political climate. Everyone is suffering as a result. Shocker. And then Trump wants to do something like remove democracy, remove the ability to vote for specific people, and essentially overthrow everything that's in place to stop shit like that from happening. Like, what even needs to be said here? Because obviously having these criticisms is absolutely necessary. It's a way to get to the bottom of things and truly understand them. Like, what do I even need to fucking add? That's why I think this sort of shit is ridiculous. I don't even know what to say. Because it doesn't matter whether you agree with Iran or disagree. The point is, criticism should be allowed. That's called free speech. And that should be a basic right to anyone and everyone. Like, if children start saying they support Palestine action, does that make them terrorists? Because by your logic, it does. And children who are like the age of 12, they do support Palestine action. But again, this government has no fucking clue what they're doing. It's absurd. And that means they can also prescribe, by virtue of that, a political party as being a terrorist organisation. To be fair, Restore and Reform, demonstrably, are a terrorist organisation. They're wreaking havoc across the UK, across the land, across the countries as well, because it even breaches out into there. And that's causing us problems. And yet, why aren't they being prescribed what they are? A terrorist organisation. So in a way, this change can benefit us, but in another way it doesn't. And that's why you can't always look at these things as if it's black and white. Because it isn't. There are real issues here. You can't ignore this crap. It is serious. And it also means organisations who serve to help others could even include something like, oh, I don't know, special effects. Like, if you throw a charity out there, a charity that I like personally and I've seen good done from them, but they can literally prescribe them as terrorist organisations because of what they do. Because it supports disabled people, it puts, well, taxpayer money into disabled people's hands and allows them to play video games. But again, they can prescribe, according to the government, they can be prescribed as a terrorist organisation. Somehow. Don't ask me how I know. Because it's just pretty fucking out there. It is blatantly obvious. So they could just pick and choose who they prescribe it as. And hell, it's even possible that they can prescribe individuals as being terrorist organisations as well. Even just ones that don't actually do anything, like for example Novara Media, who tend to speak on unbiased terms for the most part. They report on subjects, and again, that sort of censorship with only showing the news, for example, from trusted sources, quote unquote trusted, that was literally a direct attack towards him. So again, we're in like stupidly dangerous territory here with all this crap going on. What the hell is even going on? It is literally becoming an authoritarian regime. And on top of that, we also got some really surprising news, admittedly good, but not good enough. And apparently Andy Burnham apologised for ignoring the genocide in Gaza. Which is interesting, because we all knew it was a genocide for the 2 or 3 years it's been happening. The UN knew it was a genocide. For some reason now Andy Burnham believes it is a genocide. Okay, sure. But why did it take so long? It just doesn't make sense, and then what's even going to be done? Because saying these things are often empty platitudes, but you need to prove that you can do something. And people are rightfully calling us out too. Labour have been complicit in the genocide, which you yourself have to admit. But if you don't, you're not actually doing anything. You're literally on the side of terrorism, just by virtue of being Labour, but by virtue of simply being incompetent. It has to be said, Keir Starmer was incompetent when it came to this topic. Silencing people, arresting people for protesting the genocide. What even needs to be said here? Because everything that has been said. And yet, again, nothing is done. There is no proposal here. Andy didn't say we're going to stop providing weapons to Israel. In fact, there's no mention of that from the clip I saw. So they've not actually done anything. Just an empty apology, from what I could tell, without doing anything. And the thing is, I'm an unbiased person, and yet I see this as shit. There isn't any evidence. And again, you can't be relying on government sources for this stuff, and even then, if they call it genocide, you're going to make people turn against you as well. If you, the government, is calling it a genocide, people will turn against you because, guess what? People don't trust you. So if you start calling it a genocide like everyone else has, any rational person, they're going to think you're like a left wokey liberal or something, and obviously Labour is not. But that's just going to backfire on us. It's going to backfire on those who genuinely care. And that's also a massive danger. And yes, like I said, I'm unbiased, but I care because, morally speaking, nobody wants to be caught up in that sort of shit when children are prescribed as terrorists and killed for it. The way we actually treat people in our society, the children who get caught in these bad situations unless they are actively dangerous or criminals themselves, we give them a better life. We give them a second chance. So, what gives? It makes no sense. Again, it's just not a thought in their heads, it seems. Which also really sucks, because Andy Burnham was also one of the ways that things could change for the better and bring people back to Labour. Pull them back in Labour. Wait, that's a different thing. That's the point. And then look at the things that are happening around us. Climate change, you need to address that. Count bin face literally being a satire for politics. I can't say politics, so there we go. So, again, just, there's so much incompetence from Labour. Nobody trusts them, and especially on something like this. It's just going to damage the causes even more. And I'm not sure if Andy was aware of that. If he genuinely meant this apology, that is, because I'm not 100% sure myself. But again, there's so much risk here. If you genuinely care about changing your country, change it. You've got that fucking power. Like Keir Starmer has it. Had it long ago, we knew that. And yet nothing was done. So yeah, just so much fucking bullshit. What even needs to be said? And I forgot to do my time, great. Yeah. I'll do some extra overtime and fucking all work. But yeah, again, I'm just so disappointed. Actually, I might not just do all work, I'll just move on for today. Quite tired, I've done quite a bit already. So yeah, don't know what else to add, I just think it's silly. Yeah, let's move on. Well, this happened. I've never had it happen. It is so fucking weird. It's also quite an interesting experience because a while ago I learned about, I think it's like a USB-C failure that can happen, and I was thinking like, I've never really had a USB-C cable fail on me before. It's just never one of those things that it ever happens to me. And I thought, after all this time, surely something is going to go wrong at the moment with technology. As if my computer isn't bad enough as it is. Though technically still usable, which is positive. But again, I'd never really had something that niche happen to me, and when I first moved in, I had to extend the USB-C cable, so I got an extension cable. And actually, I needed that so I can charge things whilst I'm, obviously, near my bed or not using something. I need it out of the way. So, interesting thing happened there, it seems, where, so I can have a second one, I didn't realise actually. But I extended it, and it turns out that the cable was going wrong. Not the port, I don't think, although it did have an issue it seemed, because it was blocking my other devices from being able to charge, which was really annoying. It included my phone, which I need to charge quickly, usually. And it is like fast charging as well, which is the interesting thing. Although it's not fast charging anymore for some reason. I can't really determine why that is. But it's so interesting to see that, and after 2 years of use of this grey cable, which looks like it's grey from dust rather than anything else, it's finally packed up. Yeah, it's done for. But the issue wasn't what you might think it is. It's actually to do with the USB-C wire. I don't know what to call it. There's a part where it's shielded, and I felt it budge when I put it in the other night. And I don't know if that was maybe what did it. But looking at it, it's blue. And what the fuck? Why is it blue? And on top of that, it was warm. Literally checked it a second ago. I was thinking that why isn't my phone charging? I thought maybe USB-C has gone wrong. And it turns out it wasn't. Actually, I could put that back in now. I think about it. It turns out it's just that thing. That one's just gone wrong, and the entire cable was warm. From top to bottom, it was just warm. And I'd never known it. It was also kind of hot to touch as well. So, I see it is going wrong there. No idea how. But it did. I've never had that. It's strange. I don't know what to say. It's first time for everything, I suppose. Even death, but yeah. Didn't mean to go that deep, but sure, let's commit. Speaking of death, I need to move on to the next topic. One of the more annoying aspects when it comes to the body cam footage I've been watching is when it comes to discussion around people who are suicidal. And it's just really bad, the response sometimes I see from the comments. Because people just don't seem to understand it and seem to think that they actually care. They might be thinking like, what? What do you mean? Like, yeah, like, why would anyone actually think it's okay to, let's say, be suicidal and then ask someone to kill you? But the reality is, suicidal people just don't care. I've been there myself. And if something happens to you, I've definitely done things in my life. I've been cooking food just because I'm on autopilot and thinking I've got wet hands, plug in the air fryer. If I electrocute myself, I don't give a shit. Doesn't matter to me. And that's the reality. But, you know, someone has to put up with that trauma. But there's no assisted suicide either. So you can't really be surprised by the fact that people who are suicidal just don't care how it happens to them. If it's a gun to the head, knife to the throat or wrist, or even just jumping off from somewhere, again, it doesn't matter. The only thing on their mind is getting rid of the fucking pain. Why do they care about anyone else's? Why do they care about what they witness? Again, I've been there myself and I know that feeling as well. And really the only things keeping me alive are just what I have in front of me. I have a computer, I make music, I make artwork, I masturbate a lot, which ironically helps. It actually does a lot for me, it actually relieves stress, it helps with depression, it gives you something to focus on as well, and also because I stick to routine, although when it breaks it's a bit kind of shit. But I'm fine with that. That's how my life is supposed to be, and it's safest this way. But the reality is you can't be saying that people who are suicidal shouldn't be selfish. That in itself is selfish. Because the thing you should be thinking of is trying to protect those people. And trying to give them a reason to live. Not throwing money at a fucking support service like Samaritans are bloody useless. These support services are often fake and they just don't do anything. Again, I've been there, I've called many of them. And they don't do a thing and they're not even accessible for starters, so even then, the majority, the demographic of suicidal people is not even accounted for, which is why it's a scam. So you've got many problems there. I could be wrong on that. But from the outset, it's just built to be against you. And it's just so fucked. And what's the other thing I was thinking of? I guess as well, it just doesn't matter. It's like you turn into an apathetic person when you are suicidal and you start not to care about what else is going on around you, whether your family cares, whether friends care. It doesn't really matter. It can't always trigger a response. And that really ruins it. And then there's people who just take it to the extreme, know their lives are fucking over, live out whatever last bit of pleasure they can find is, I don't know what it could be, and then just end it, because there is nothing else for them here. And if you can't get treated for it the right way, because there are a lot of wrong ways of treating these issues, therapy and medication for example don't help, then they get fucked. And again, the only way I've helped mine is through just focusing on other things, having distractions in my life that do something for me. And if it weren't for them, I'd be bored out of my fucking mind. I'd be trying to kill myself right now. And that happens, and even with my sort of bouts of depression and feeling unhappy, I'm able to at least stick to things and keep focusing on them. I watch the Twitch stream, I play games obviously. People really need to stop dismissing those types of suicidal people, and especially in the body cam footages where people pretend to pull out a gun or do pull out a gun just to be shot. It's kind of like, yeah, the situation's fucked, and unfortunately that's gonna obviously end up with them being hit. But it's an extremely dangerous situation either way. Like whether or not they die, it's not great. And sometimes if they live through that, they can go back, I guess, but not all of them do. Not all of them want to recover. In fact, I think even then some shots can just lead you to paralysis or worse. I don't know what to say. It's just one of these situations, again, you can't ignore the facts. You just have to try and help people for just what they need, really. And again, the lack of actual help out there is what contributes to this. You know, a lot of these body cam footages, I think we do need to see that there is something done where we start given the proper resources out there to help with these issues. Again, as I've said, these fake support services, because it is just fake. You really need to get on with the correct thing here. Like, I don't know how to describe it exactly. It's actually a case of, well, actually, you just need to give them this advice and try this advice. Get them to answer exactly what they enjoy. And admittedly, some support places do that. They do actually have, specific techniques for getting people to answer what gives them pleasure in life, and it can help, I suppose, to be told what to do, but they don't. And that's the problem. They could say, like, why don't you do that? Instead of, well, go do that. It's not even like a forced thing, it's just, over here, woe is you. That's it. Like, they just don't care. And that's the utter failure with support services. I've always complained about this. I've been in this situation myself, and if it were possible, I'd probably even make a organisation that says, like, address depression and suicide properly, because it literally doesn't get addressed. And then with medication, I'd start looking into the pharmacies and pharmaceutical industries rather, and try and advocate for better medication wherever that exists. So, for example, people whose pleasures, and again, they should fill out things like this, but if their pleasures are derived from, say, like myself, masturbating, then they should try medication like mirtazapine or quetiapine. These things exist and they have minimal side effects, but sometimes they do have really bad side effects, and also that's bad. But we need to develop stuff then that allows it to not be that sort of lethal. It sounds weird to say lethal when it comes to something like libido, but it literally is. To some people, myself included, it's kind of the lifeline. Like, it just is. You rely on this stuff because it's pleasurable and it distracts you. But if I'm treating two things at once, then it's just not going to work. Or just using two treatments at once. Because if one's incompatible with the other, then that's just going to fuck things up massively. Which is why it's bad. So yeah, like, what do I even say? It sucks. And I just wish that people would pay attention, really focus on what matters here and try and address the issue. And yeah, I do feel sorry for all these people who purposely try and get shot just to end it all. And it sort of makes me wonder as well, like, why the hell haven't police actually, like, properly trained or anything? Like, why do they aim for the vitals? It's kind of weird in that sense, and I could be missing something, but they should not aim for the fucking vitals every time. You only have one of each organ, except for kidneys, obviously, and testicles, technically. But you should always be aiming for something non-vital, so shoot the arm, for example. That's reaching. Shoot the legs for where it's reaching. Just focus on that. And yeah, it may, like, cripple them and stuff, but it's far better when it comes to a suicidal person. I wouldn't care if it's a fucking gunman. They'll kill him. But a suicidal person, someone who's mentally ill, who you know is mentally ill, you should be practicing better things there. More non-lethal methods. Because if taser can't do it, which somebody said it can't, I didn't realise that, unless it's like a hand taser, I think hand tasers are better, then it's just not going to work. So yeah, I don't really know what else to add, to be honest. Maybe there's like a type of item out there that can just knock someone off their feet. You never know. It's just like trip someone up, cover them maybe, I don't know. Like, there has to be something. Because it's fucking ridiculous. Hell, what if it was like an electronic taser blanket or something? It'd be somewhat lethal in itself, but it still, like, it would completely stop the person. Although, again, there's sort of the issue with the gun and the trigger, but hopefully that sort of thing just doesn't backfire, but I don't know. But the point is just being nicer to the world instead of being ignorant. It's just fucking ridiculous. So yeah, let's move on. Of all my traits sort of interacting with each other, one of the things I realised is I'm not sure if I am responsible or not, or even consenting for that matter. That's what comes about from the amount of issues I have around anxiety, obviously autism, not being able to communicate properly, and obviously like OCD and stuff, and also learning delays. But I think it's really worrying considering these things because they interact with me so much, and I even have anxiety about asking for advice on things, and I've had like bad advice before, but I've also had people saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't be this, or you're an idiot, without really explaining why, which is the difference. I think I can't take people seriously when their claim of being an idiot is simply idiot and not anything else, not any reason leading up to that. But that also makes me worry as well because of just how it might impact my life as it is. Like if I were to, I don't know, learn how to drive, if I crash, like what then? What happens exactly? Because do they say that my disability is playing a role? Do they say that I'm responsible for it all, even if I'm not? It's weird in that sense. Again, I don't really know. It's a very concerning sort of situation. So I don't know the easy way, really. Again, it's like very concerning. I don't really know what to do about it. I'm tired for fuck's sake. At least it means I'm tired. But yeah, again, I just feel like there's that element of me where I'm not sure if there's a situation where I should be granted, for example, immunities or not. If there's a situation where I should be treated as a child or not. Not to be conflated with infantilized, but infantilization, but essentially treating me as if I had the mentality of a child, which sadly it does happen every now and then. So I'm not really sure, and I sort of get if people sort of wager on just me being sort of a responsible adult within reason. So again, I worry about this. I don't think there's an easy answer to it. I do wonder. I don't really know what else to ask. It's just like I've been thinking about. I'm curious if people have a understanding of response, because I think it is. I think it is important to point out, just to avoid confusion, just to avoid problems, and also just my own mental health being taken into account here. Anyway, let's move on. For as much as I criticise CEOs and companies, there are some that just go above and beyond. And in this case, it seems to always be Nintendo. I don't know why. I remember the last, I think, CEO guy, I can't remember his name, sorry. He's famous and sadly died. But he was great. But he took like cuts and stuff during Nintendo's like worst performing sort of eras, and also just was a decent person and also smart. And it turns out the top people at Nintendo are earning less than the top CEOs and top jobs in Western developers and publishers. So I'll go through this. It's shared by Natstalk as a PDF file, not to be mistaken for the felony, but it's just a PDF file. That's a file type. It's Nintendo's own, and they reported on it, supposedly, although it could be falsified, you never know. But anyway, this grid, this table rather, shows some stuff, so shows the compensation in amounts of millions of dollars. There's other things here too, like officer classification, company classification, fixed compensation, performance-based compensation, restricted stock compensation, which totals it, I think. But anyway, Shintaro Furukawa, surprisingly never heard the name, director who is not an audit and supervisory committee member, and also part of the company, and he makes $2 million, which is a shock. And then there's Shigeru Miyamoto, that is a familiar name, 1.54, director who is not an audit and supervisory committee member. Part of the company makes 1.54 million. Shinya Takahashi, I've somewhat heard that name somewhere. Director, again, the same things for such as Peter and Nintendo, and gets 1.16 million. And Satoru Shibata is also a director on top of that other thing, a director of Nintendo America, making 1,030,000. What the fuck? Like, it's just insane to think about. Because this is the thing, this is a reasonable salary. Even though it's not perfect, it's still much more reasonable. And it shows they know what they're doing here. I don't know if all of Japan is like this, and hopefully they are, because that'd be a good thing, but this is quite telling, really. I do think with Nintendo, they just seem to have a lot of W's more than they do L's. I think the most petty L's are to do with profit, with referring to making like certain content. So if you're profiting off content that they own, it's kind of like, but it shouldn't be a controversy. There, obviously, judging by this as well, they have the expenses anyway to just support them to begin with, and not to mention, if it comes to something like a cover or even just fan work, like a video, which I think is really important to point out, because there was that like geographic video stuff that they took down because the author was asking for, I think, donations or was it subscriptions? I can't remember what it was. But stuff like that is just extremely stupid in my opinion, because it's just so petty, I guess. There was just no reason for it, and they fucked people over because of it. For no reason. Again. And the thing is, they have no right to take these down, even on a copyright basis. It's free fucking advertisement. How many times do we need to repeat this shit? Even a cover of a Nintendo track is free advertisement. And you really cannot ignore that. So I don't know who the hell at Nintendo is deciding to do these, but they do need to look into who's doing this. Because this can't go on. It's gone on for over 10 years now, and this shit does ruin the company's image. It's very monopolistic and it's like anti-consumer. And I think that's a bad sign, even again with this good news, it seems. But they should be trying to do as many W's as possible, especially when it comes to supporting the community. And I swear they had even I swear they had a game when they actually showcased fan art, and it's like really wholesome. But obviously, I think they wouldn't really like it, and it's just, yeah, it's really weird. Anyway, I think it is generally really good what we've seen here. Um, Again, it's just not really anything bad to say. It's not really shocking, but it's also it's an example, it's a shining example of what a billionaire and a CEO should be these days. Rather than having a fucking net worth of a trillion or billion or whatever, they should be living an average life based off of the money they've accumulated over their time serving for the company, and that's that. You know, people won't have issue with mansions and supercars. If that's your thing, go ahead. But when you're profiting so fucking much and not giving it back, like redistributing it into the economy, not paying taxes, not even helping your own company, I think that is just scummy. And that would make you liable for just many issues. And as I've talked about an anti-corruption unit before, I think it's really important. I think we need something to address these problems exactly. Because it can't go on. It's not sustainable. We've seen it, and it's not sustainable. That's also something to change anyway. I need to move on because I'm almost overdue on my fucking bedtime. So yeah. Oh, it's been a weird news week, I guess, or day, whatever it is. So Rocksmith Plus has given out a dev update, and I don't know they do this, but I've read it, and it's still not good by the looks of it. So they said they're a small team, but they've got a new team now. Focus on key areas, because I heard from Chainbrain that they only had a lawyer or something doing all the work. A lawyer? Like what? Didn't seem right, because apparently most of the other people have been fired. But seemingly they've got new people on here, so I don't know what that means. They haven't even listed the devs or whoever it could be, so no idea what that means. It's just also just emptiness. Then they, for some reason, started it with advertising Rocksmith Plus and working licensing famous artists and tracks and bands and stuff. They've got quite a few listed here, and I'm gonna list some. Like Coldplay, Paramore, Sepultura, Dream Theater, Green Day, Bob Dylan. There's quite a few. For some reason, Disturbed, even though they've pretty much been cancelled now, I think. Linkin Park as well. But then they've listed some other changes, and they're saying they're going to improve Rocksmith Plus stability, the technical stability, by catching bugs. Sure, but that wasn't the issue with Rocksmith Plus. There weren't a ton of bugs other than obviously the connection servers. I think that was a bit stupid. But the connections and stuff were terrible on that. If a server went down, fuck you. That was their response. Anyway, they've talked about Rocksmith 2014 here too, which is interesting. They say that they're going to chase licensing some of the tracks on there, which is good, I think. It's not a bad thing. But the fact they're willing to do that is a good sign, I think, because it means they still care somewhat. Because 2014 is pretty much the ultimate Rocksmith game as of its current state, because there's 3 Rocksmith games. 2012, I believe it was, or 2011. 2014 remastered technically, and Plus. And of the 3, 2014 is still the winner. But I don't know what they're even trying to achieve here, because to be honest, they're not even addressing it properly. They're not even making changes to make it like Feedback, which is the Slopsmith, originally Slopsmith. They've changed the name. But there's also String Theory, which is one I learned about recently, which is on Steam, but it's not out yet, which I'm very interested in. But this is the problem. You're chasing after monetary value rather than an actual experience, one that actually matters, one that actually can do stuff. Like Rocksmith 2014 should have evolved. There should have been stages to these things. Like you should be able to learn an 8-string, you should be able to learn anything like heavy gauge, or even just piano and keyboard, or even vocals or drums. They didn't bother updating it. Instead, they went this live service route, did nothing, and have complained. I said, no, we're not as popular as we should be. Gee, I wonder why. Like, they ignore every piece of fucking feedback, and that probably includes the bugs as well. They're so dumb. Anyway, they say they're making Rocksmith Plus more affordable, which I doubt. They say as low as $6 a month on a 12-month plan, which that's always a way, but it's not good enough because the service itself is shit. And if people want to trial it, then the problem is they're not going to be willing to when that price is so high, because they know it's a fruitless fucking effort. They could just look up a tab and learn that way. And that is probably the best way, to be fair, at this point, because obviously Rocksmith Plus is inferior. So yeah, not good. They said expanded regular DLC discount offers. Oh yeah, for 2014, which is good. I think it was a bit too expensive anyway. The current prices, it's like £7 the last time I checked for a pack of 3. And they say at the bottom here, our focus is now on improving your experience, making the game better, smoother and more fun to come back to. Once that's solid, our goal is to start working on new features down the road, which, yeah, again, is good. But it took this long to do it. Like, I'm pretty sure Rocksmith Plus has been out for 5 years now, so again, it took this long to do it. Why? We asked for these features long ago, and they were ignored. And that's when they had developers. So, what gives? And then they say, like, the elephant in the room, saying that Rocksmith hasn't lost on them. And they say they should be able to build and create your own things or something. Just talk about the community. What's the other thing they have here? I can't remember reading this for some reason. Sector work and technologies, the actions recently. They are used without authorization. Okay, I need to reread this then. So, start on the top. The dedication this community brings to Rocksmith isn't lost on us, and passionate communities are creative. If you believe in your ideas, go build them, your own designs, your own code, your own licenses. That's how the world moves forward. For the same reason, it shall not come at the expense of the work of the teams and artists who contribute to Rocksmith. The actions we took recently reflect our intent to protect our works and technologies when they are used without authorization. That is not a decision the Rocksmith team takes lightly. That care applies to some being distracted. That care applies to music too. We build Rocksmith with respect for artists and their creations. Properly licensing music is one of the foundations Rocksmith stands on. There's careful work and discussions with the artists and the labels. That's how we make sure those people, the people whose creativity makes Rocksmith possible, are treated fairly. Any new ideas or projects built on the same music need the same foundation, otherwise it stands on nothing. So yeah, basically addressing Slopsmith, but I think it's a pretty pathetic response. It's just corpo bullshit again. Because it's quite obvious, like, saying build your own designs, your own code, your own licenses. You never took them down for a design. So what the fuck are you on about? Again, this highlights how scummy it is. I don't understand it. It's just so dumb. So yeah, like, what are you on about? They did make their own design and their own code. Well, technically Claude code. It's Claude AI that was used for it, sadly. I would have preferred none, but to be fair, it did speed up the process, it seems. own licenses. The average person can't get a fucking license. It's impossible. I don't know how possible it is. I know that there are games, indie games, that have been able to do it, but it's only because of a publisher. And publishers are the only ones able to, I think. Could be wrong. But this is stupid. So no. Again, this is sort of false, and you don't need a fucking license. I think you just need ownership, and that's it. Shouldn't be any need for this shit. So it's just ridiculous. So yeah, that's the other thing. The intent to protect the works and technologies without authorization. I feel like that's also a scummy statement. Because Peaceark, I don't know if any other games use it. So I could be wrong, but I don't feel like there is something being used without authorization. If anything, it's optional. It's the same way there are files we use for everything else. So a .txt file, .bat if you're using like batch files. It's just like different things, and it's like, who fucking cares? You're the only one who cares about this. Hell, every game uses .pngs and JPEGs, probably. PNGs definitely, I know that, because they all use sprites, and sprites use the alpha channel. For anyone not familiar with that term, it means transparency. But basically, I think it's like the first channel or something. I could be wrong. Yeah, kind of stupid. Yeah, it's not disrespecting anyone either. This is what I feel with this. It feels disrespectful to offer a game, or rather show a game that's like inferior to everyone else's, and say that this is what you need to play. Like, that's disrespecting artists. And I'm pretty sure that labels are not going to associate with you for that, even with money involved. There are just some that are just going to say no, because you've fucked it. You've absolutely turned people off the platform, and you're not going to bring them profit. So what's the point? It's just incredibly dumb. And then they have the last heartfelt word. Fair criticism of the Rocksmith games themselves is always welcome, and also it makes them better. I doubt it. I said this a long ago. You needed to make a better product, otherwise you're just not going to succeed. And they didn't make a better product, and they didn't succeed. Shocker. So no. So whoever's writing this obviously didn't get the memo. Like, if you play guitar because of Rocksmith, that's what makes it worth doing and worth doing right. You have to see it to believe it. My only response to that. Rocksmith was like in a product of your dedication. We had to fight to make it, as it was a bet no one else was making at the time. We too took some risks to change it in the hopes of making it better, and while some things did not pan out as expected, we kept fighting to keep Rocksmith going through the rough patches. That's what drives us now. Now we have a chance to keep pushing forward. We owe this to everyone who's been part of Rocksmith. The next chapter is one where building for your community and to win back those we've lost. Yeah, again, good luck with that. The thing is, we're in the era of basically the open source note highway stuff, like string theory, as I said, is one of them. And there's also like a VR one I've seen in progress, which actually looks amazing. It looks a bit better than the others. But I'm also quite hopeful of feedback being a lot better than it is. I think it's that shows promise, but Rocksmith team and Ubisoft don't. And this felt like a response, and this is why I say it's corpo bullshit. It's a response to feedback, as a response to string theory. They've seen the popularity it's gotten, and they're getting scared. And they wanted to keep it alive, seemingly, by this shit. Literally trying to get people back after playing it for some reason, even though they've failed. They've failed to bring these people back and keep them occupied. And given I was one of the subscribers before with like 3-month subscription and stuff. But yeah, they're obviously wanting my money back, but it's too expensive. So nobody's going to play it, and when it's too expensive, nobody will. So it's stupid. I was just looking at this like free tuna thing. Yeah, okay, the free tuna actually works. It just pops up on the top there. It's actually kind of useful, not gonna lie. But what a fucking shit post. Like, what the hell are you thinking? It's just so dumb. Words can't even begin to describe how stupid that is, because it is just bad. But yeah, I don't know if I'd hope for the games to improve and take feedback. I can't really be that hopeful of it. It just seems too bad to be true. And also the idea that they'll add things, add new features, again, too good to be true. There's both here. Yeah, it's quite shameful, to be honest. I think they should be ashamed. They aren't already. But yeah, fuck this game. I'm gonna do the open source stuff instead. It's the only thing worth doing. Anyway, let's move on. Just got finished with that Channel 4 documentary, and it's interesting. There's certainly some things to note about it. It's with Gary Stevenson talking about the wealth inequality and stuff, and actually interviewing rich people, which is an interesting perspective, because it really does demonstrate the issue with rich people. They're in this sphere where they've never had a hard day in their life and haven't even come from backgrounds except one of them in this. And even the one who did was even kind of like, oh, well, I wouldn't like it. It's just fucking absurd, and just being working class doesn't inherently mean that you're actually working class 2 billionaire, rather, doesn't actually mean that you have any credibility. It's what's going on during that matters. If you're like homeless, if you like absolutely like traumatised as a kid, yes, believe it or not, that impacts it as well, I think. But it's so fucking ridiculous that somehow they can argue against a wealth tax despite being insanely rich and this being a penny to them. But it's just tiring listening to that, because it's the same thing that other people are saying. It's like, you're going to ruin my success, you're going to ruin their success. As if that ever fucking mattered. Weirdly enough, it's only convenient because it's against the progressive parties. So it's just absurd. And then I wrote some points down about how a lot of this felt. How what was said even. So I said there was a lot of scumbag people on it. It's because they literally are. But the scumbags are these rich people who don't value any poorer person. Just think they're scum, and again it ties into this echo chamber or sphere of like wealthy. Like, look at the dinner parties that Trump has had with people, and it's fucking ridiculous. Like, every single person there is a billionaire, except for maybe a few government people. But even then, they're invited to these governmental things, and yet nobody raises any questions around that. When it's so fucking bizarre, why is the ultra rich sitting with the government? Obviously, it's corruption. And I'm surprised people still don't question that. It's just a shocker. And so, what I saw in this documentary of the billionaires is just a lot of scumbags, and also knowing that Gary made his wealth from a gamble in itself, which was, a very bizarre gamble, apparently gambling on whether they would recover in like 2008 from an economic crisis. And apparently that panned out for him. Okay. Sure, it's a bit sus, but sure. Sure is a good bet then, based on what's happened, obviously. At least the one thing you can say about Gary Stevenson is at least he still comes out of it giving a shit about the poor people and the working class. And there's so many things highlighted in the documentary, like the housing situation and people living in vans, and even the idiots who seem to think that the people in the vans are causing these disruptions, which they might very well be. But what are you gonna do? You put them there by being rich. So what the fuck are you complaining about? It's just really dumb. And then I wrote down another thing. They never talk about the poor. Ever. It's never a consideration, which demonstrates the point perfectly about how corrupt they are, how selfish they are. And if this is wrong, prove it. I'm open to these fucking conversations. I've been open to it for years. And yet nobody has demonstrated this. I think the gaming sphere, because this is actually a real thing, gaming companies and stuff, everyone in that has a risk of losing their job just by being considered redundant or just literally not being needed or just pushing it into one fucking game. But people have so many risks in the game industry, and no CEO ever says like, "Oh, well, we feel really sorry for these guys." They just lay them off. As far as I know, there's no like severance package either, so they don't actually give them a thing after they've been essentially fired, and fired for nothing for that matter. It's so fucking ridiculous. And the thing is, I don't even work, and I realise this is an issue. I think, again, just demonstrates the issue. And I would be working if I had anything that I was good at and had stable mental health, which medication can't treat, by the way. I've tried. And yet people seem to insist that it's still a thing that can be treated with medication, but again, you're not a doctor and neither am I, so you can't dictate that shit. It simply doesn't exist. I think it's ridiculous, really. This comes up in a conversation. Yeah, so I'm just tired of shit. Same thing every time. And yeah, nothing new offered. And then the other thing I wrote is they always talk about investment. It's like a constant thing you hear from any of these places, any of these companies, any of these CEOs. Investment this, investment that. Foreign investors won't pay for the UK if they're going to be taxed on it. Who the fuck cares? We're talking about the richest people in the UK and who have ties to it currently and possibly. And possibly being the factory work and stuff, obviously they might include and whatever. I don't even need to fucking say. This shit is tiring. It really goes without saying. And because of that, it just fails, it falls behind. So yeah, they always talk about investments. It seems to be the only thing they care about. And as Gary pointed out in the documentary, there's a difference between like a tax lawyer here, who's interviewing, who brought this up, and himself, who is an equality economist. Like a tax economist. What's the other? I forgot his position. It wasn't just a tax lawyer, was it? But Gary is definitely a equality economist, or whatever you call it. And that's the difference, I think. They look at it from different angles, and it has to be proven wrong then in that case, if someone like Gary is wrong. You can't just be simply putting shit out there, saying or claiming that the birth tax is not going to work, that it's going to backfire, it's going to cause people to be like, no, I don't want to do this, or don't want to pay. It's just a severe amount of bullshit, constantly. And again, it's investment this and investment that. Not the people, investment. Like, what the fuck? It genuinely makes no sense. It's just extremely dumb. So yeah, like, what else is there even to say? The only other thing I wrote down is forgetting that about wages. They don't seem to address that ever either. So when people are struggling to work in these places, whether it's the games industry or the health sector or anything else, anywhere else, it's never mentioned. Not once. It wasn't mentioned a single time in this documentary. And the only one who brought it up was Gary. What do I even say? It's just shocking negligence, and I think also there is a point here to be made about arresting people for this shit, for negligence. Because paying someone not enough, leaving them poor, leaving them starving, leaving a family starving, and then if they die, if they get severely injured or suffer, then the person responsible for that, the billionaire who decided these wages for them, should be held responsible for that. Either through a large compensation, enough to see them through to the future and recovery, or a tax. But even with the guy in the beginning, because I was thinking about this, like, he said he started poor, and then made his way up. And, you know, even despite that, he still invests and invests. He goes into multiple different things and makes it a reality seemingly, and I get the point of view where he seems to think that building on things and investing means that people have more choice and stuff. But investment also means that there is more for people to spend on, which is a point I didn't see either bring up. And I'm surprised because I'm not even an economist. But in order for people to buy these things, they need to not be overwhelmed with all the other stuff. Say you're doing these super drinks or whatever they're called, that for some reason companies are doing. Sure, people do them and companies do them. But when there's so many out there and people can't choose, they're only going to choose one over the other. And then your investment just fails. It becomes a complete failure because you just conflate the market. The same reason I see on Amazon a lot when I try to search for very niche things. Like, I can't remember what it was recently. But it's like I'm seeing the same thing over and over again. In fact, I could probably check. I'm definitely losing this fucking thing here. Yeah, I was looking at something, there's just too many of the same thing. Like guitar hangers, I was looking for one that can actually fit an 8 string on it, and there are too many of them. Something I can't find it, I don't know what it was now. Thermometers, definitely that's one, because they're all electronic, and I just want a basic physical one, just to see how hot the conservatory gets here. To make sure that I know what it'd be like in the future is really enough an experiment. I just want to know. Just want to see what hell we're getting ourselves into with climate change. So it's like really important sort of stuff, although, you know, a bit silly, but it has a point. That's the difference. And that's the problem again. We're spending so much as well. Yeah, back in the day, I think one of the reasons we could afford things a bit better, say back in the day, I wasn't even born in like the 80s or 90s. The reason that people could afford things was because there's much less going on. They didn't have Amazon. They didn't necessarily have FedEx as far as I know, so they couldn't necessarily get international deliveries. Well, they probably did actually, I'm probably wrong about that. But a lot of these things that we have now are a result of convenience, and we're so overwhelmed with convenience, we end up being sort of greedy in that sense, and we end up sort of failing a bit. If anything, if I could sort of rewind time a bit, I think I'd choose being a guitarist over some sort of like physical artist or digital artist as I am now, simply because it's one of the more expensive hobbies, but it's also one of the better to like return back on with money and stuff. And if I had that talent, I would have been fine in the future. I could have sold music and stuff, maybe not for the best the most amount of profit, but enough, I think. And I think that's really important. I think that matters. Certainly, these days you can't really do that because you can't even afford a fucking investment. That's what they say as well. They say the way to success is just investing. And it is true. That's the harsh reality, but what they don't tell you is it's a gamble. When you invest, it is literally just a gamble. Meaning, for example, as much as I put into music, the amount I've spent on that is probably in thousands or even like £2,000. And it hasn't really made a success. You know, even though it's VSTs, it hasn't been successful. And even considering my computer, which the components necessary for this were about £1,000 in total, it still hasn't done anything. Again, investment doesn't mean winning, and that's what billionaires need to understand. Because they have it easy, they don't have to fucking worry about investments if it fails. But us people in the lower bracket, we have to worry. We can't afford investment. We can't even find success in investment, even when there is success. Because sometimes the return is like something like +1%, +20%, as far as I'm aware of it anyway. It's just a gamble, and that's why betting markets are so popular as well. People seem to think they can make their buck through the gambling market, and that's why we have a gambling problem. Because people want to get money, they want to survive, they want to get rich in some cases as well. Let's not disregard the fact that some people are greedy. They do exist. We cannot ignore that. Once again, we come back to this point where people just want a safe and stable life. And people didn't have to gamble like 20 years ago, or even 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It wasn't really a thing. People who gambled just did it for fun, or again, sort of just try to flip a profit. But it was only those sort of dumb enough and lucky enough to say lucky enough, because there were some people who were lucky out of it. Yeah. As we currently stand, the lower bracket is being torn apart because there is nobody to save them. It's just nothing. We literally need an answer to this crap. So I don't really know what to even add. This documentary was kind of tiring to watch. I don't know if I recommend it though, that's the weird thing. Because it is just depressing to watch. Because it shows a lot of the issues. It shows all this bullshit about the billionaires, and you know, even though it makes the right points and stuff, admittedly it's brave of Channel 4 to even post this, because I'm pretty sure Reform is infesting that channel right now. But it's good that it's out there. Again, that tax will not work is the thing that's said, and we need to go by an evidence-based proposition here, rather than what the billionaires say. Because it's not about what they fucking say. They're not the ones having to live off in a van, live in poverty, feed off like food banks and stuff. Like, again, they're not the ones who do it. They're not the ones in this difficult situation. They never had a difficult situation to begin with. Including if they were in working class, or were in working class, I mean. That's why this is just such bullshit and such ridiculousness. And we've even seen a 12th tax be successful. I'm pretty sure Mamdani in the US, in New York, had a wealth tax implemented, specifically because New York was infested with wealthy people. I'm pretty sure of it anyway. And that ended up benefiting it. Apparently the place is like the best it's ever been. From what I've heard anyway. And that really demonstrates a lot I even saw somewhere that their crime is like down to one of the lowest, I believe, or even one of the smallest in the US. I'm pretty sure I could be wrong on that actually. I think it was a different statistic actually. It's more like deaths by police pursuit, I think. As I was watching the body cam footage, I think New York was like either in the top 10 lowest or top 20. It's one of them, of 51 states, obviously. Is it 51 states? Is it 50? Dementia. That's a state. Anyway, I think that's about it, really. Don't have anything else to add, but as I said, topic is exhausting. It's just ridiculous. Again, I don't really recommend it. It's more the same, but if you want to see how tone deaf they are, I guess feel free to watch it. I sort of hope it picks up traction with, someone like Most Critical. Hopefully he watches this somehow. I don't know if he will. But I think it's important because the UK is just being fucked, and given that he has a sort of almost like a philanthropic perspective, I think, at least as far as I know, it makes like millions in revenue and then gives it away, which is good. I think he needs to pay attention to this, so that's important. So yeah, anyway, let's move on. Well, I found out about something recently. I don't know the full story, admittedly, but just from the snippet, it's fucking concerning and absolutely disgusting. I don't really know what to say because it is that disgusting, and I think it's one of the worst things I've heard about data centers so far. Yes, about data centers, you've heard that. But this is apparently about data center NDAs. Like, what the fuck? I never even heard of this before. But judging by the sounds of it, it's probably exactly what you think it is. And that implies a lot of very concerning things. It means that every recorded case where someone in leadership has accepted a data center being built without consultation of people is essentially corrupt. It's just blatant corruption. What needs to be said? As if that's not bad enough, I guess we need to explain exactly why it's wrong. Because taking money, a bribe essentially, for the sake of building something, bribes usually imply that there's something you can buy with that, obviously, that money. But data centers themselves are so damaging, I don't know why you would even bother with a bribe. It frankly makes no fucking sense. Because you're not going to be able to afford living there, assuming you do live there. So it just becomes a real fucking mess. Because, well, not surprising you can't afford anything. The electricity bill goes on, the water bill goes off, what the fuck do you even expect? And then eventually you run out of that money. Like, great. You people are fucking clowns. But it just shows the level of corruption there is, as many are talking about in the comment section itself. And I think this really makes a justification because it seems now, these days, there is especially an equal and sometimes greater opposite, where it can do a lot of good things. For example, if games are taking away their services or their brand to whatever it is, like say it's the Crew, for example. In a weird case, obviously the one that stopped killing games is fighting about rather, as they started with anyway. This is an entire catalyst for it, the stop killing games, and it's justified to pirate it because you no longer have access to the game. You're missing a crucial element of it, and a playable element like that. So piracy is justified. You can't sue someone for pirating it. Because that is just the reality. It fucking sucks, but that is essentially the problem. It's because of this shit, because of that game being taken down for being so weird. It's just so fucking bad. Like, no game should be removed, ever. That's the point I was getting to. I got distracted. And that's why it's obviously necessary. And then for music, for example, if they're not releasing a physical version of it, or even a downloadable version of the music, then by your very own right, you should be able to just download it and not pay for it. Because they've not even gave you access to it, for starters. It's just really bad. And that shit is just further unjustifiable. It's just insane. So I don't really know what to add there, exactly. It is a major issue. I think what else there is I swear there's something else to talk about. Yeah, actually that was it. It's a piece of advice I have. But I said basically, if you have to be silent about your corruption, we can be loud about our displeasure. And that implies whatever it means to you. So, obviously their corruption being that they're actually profiting off this shit by compromising people's lives, then we're allowed to express our displeasure with that. We could say, stop that, or we can go and take the extreme and stop it physically. Literally. And obviously, at this point, the world's just going to turn into a witch hunt for billionaires and corrupt people. And frankly, that's not going to be surprising. I wouldn't even blame them. But that's what's going to happen. So, yeah, obviously it's like a big warning for humanity, really. If you're corruptible, you're gonna face the fucking consequences. Because nobody will forgive you for that. And, you know, even though it's maybe the first time in history, you might see some sort of turn towards either a wide-scale mass murder of people, or even something like mass slavery, if that's even a thing. It's concerning. This is essentially what's going to happen. And because we're turning to that, it's going to cause issues. But in history, it won't go down well, fortunately, to report. There's obviously the worry of erasing history, but I think as long as people are smart, then we won't actually be able to, we won't be able to erase it or anything. You can literally store it, literally do a One Piece and have like poneglyphs. Yeah, it's like crazy things like that. As I said, this data center NDA is just extremely concerning. It feels very, very corrupt and very suspicious, and I think everyone needs to be questioned on this, and I think the relevant companies as well also need to be brought in for questioning by the people, because I think if they're too fucking cowardly to actually address the issues here, address the concerns, they should go and fucking face them. You know, you get all these, for some reason, tech billionaires and CEOs going to universities doing speeches, and I don't know if they have a Q&A section, hopefully they do, but if they don't, then, you know, they're obviously fucking corrupt. And you have to remember there's more of you than there are of them. Hint, by the way. So, take that as you will. But I think it's frankly fucking ridiculous that people are allowed to get away with it. That's what annoys me about it so much. And we need to take matters into our own hands, I think. As usual, with all this stuff. Again, it's hard to sort of argue against political violence in this current economy and climate. When it's fucking you over this hard, what are you supposed to do? Just sit there and accept it? Lose money and die, essentially? No, people aren't going to accept that as an option. It's just absolutely delusional. So stemming on that other topic again, I had a realisation again. I wish I could remember what it was, but I think it's maybe something to do with if they can live in our situations, then they've already proved that they're actually not capable of like dictating whether a wealth tax is necessary or not. I think that pretty much goes without saying, but I think people struggle to articulate that. But that is a reality. If you're a billionaire or a millionaire and you've never had to work a day in your life, you need to actually fucking go out there and do it, because nobody will actually empathise with you. And you have all the hardships associated with it. Start from essentially nothing, try to get somewhere. As if you can't, well, you learnt your lesson, haven't you? But there's no like cheat code either, as you'll find out in that situation. So yeah, again, it's pretty fucking cowardly. That's the thing. It's them being cowardly. They don't ever debate this with people. It's weird that they decided to debate that sort of thing with Gary, but nobody else debated them or anything for some reason, which I find extremely bizarre, because they should. It's always worth discussing these things, just in case you're wrong, in case there's a point that could be made, something you need to think about, for example. Yeah, there's actually so many issues with this, and human rights violations stop when you consider what someone is going through, that I empathise with them, give a shit about them. It's just so many things that can be good if you just put your mind towards the people who matter in the world, the working class, the poor people, and start prioritising them, start helping them. It feels absolutely necessary at this point. So yeah, I think it's stupidly important. Anyway, I ain't got anything else on, I don't think. But again, this is something that scares me, and I think we need to talk about it sooner rather than later. Anyway, let's move on. So, whilst I'm in my panicky as fuck state, there is some good news at least. Someone's doing something, or rather a group. Apparently there's a list of ICE agents now. There's like a ton of things on this like wiki. Thousands of entries of incidents of agents. It's actually pretty good, pretty promising as it is. And I think with obviously the influx of incidents around ICE in the US, it's very much necessary. I think something like this would benefit the UK as well, if it ever comes to that, obviously, but I think we sort of need it anyway, because of the types of people there are. Like, we need a list of the MPs who are just violent and hateful, because that's what they are. And the same with those who have been bought out. So obviously someone like Keir Starmer would appear on that list, because he was complicit with billionaires and Israel. And yeah, pretty much it writes itself. Because if you were innocent, you wouldn't actually have a problem. You wouldn't even be on there. But no, they chose to be guilty, so yeah, that's on you. And the same with like people part of like a grooming gang, because I think this could be a I don't know if the term is faceted, but a multifaceted sort of, what do you call it, inquiry or detection? I don't know what to call it. Something like this could be very beneficial, I think, because it could also put grooming gangs in. You could put in like the hate groups and the people associated with them. There's so many different things you can do, and it would also save a lot of like police investigations as well, probably, if the police obviously don't succumb to the corruption. As far as I know it, the police don't really, except for obviously the Palestinian action stuff and the protests. But as far as everything else goes, it isn't really that corrupt, it seems. I think it depends on the place. But yeah, I think this is important though. We do need these sort of fucking lists, and that does mean something. It does mean that we are kind of going to need it at some point. If we're going the route of the US, we will need it at that point. It's not surprising, and yeah, I don't really think it's a problem though. I think I see people saying like, "Oh, this is horrible. This is like tracking down a bunch of people for what, like because they've appeared in these footages." But no, that's a straw man, and oftentimes it is when they respond to it like that. When it comes to something like protesting and whatever's with that, being able to document the people who've been involved in that because of their like past or their previous crimes is really important. If you could somehow look up a criminal record for one of the protesters in like, what was it, I think it's just the fascism protest actually. So like, yeah, the pro-fascism protest, and look at the people in there. Literally document it and you'll find firsthand what the fucking issue is. And on top of that, you've got reasons to obviously deal with these people yourself, to actually deal out justice. Because it's right there. Again, these people are dangerous. I said before, fascism, authoritarianism, whatever it is at this point, it's extremely dangerous. It is not good for people. It is just awful. And we can't sustain a life with that. That much is obvious. So I think we need to deal with it sooner rather than later. So being able to document the people who are literally criminals is really important. You know, I know that independent journalists and even party like channels like Political Custard report on a lot of these people who do these things. Like the fucking amount of bullshit that they have, where some Reform or United Kingdom or race of colours person has a troubled history, let's say. It turns out they're fucking beautiful in the sense of being offending one, because there's also a difference. But offending beautiful with a past, like, yeah, that says a lot about these people. They only care about themselves and care about sort of scapegoating towards something else to distract from their own fucking terrible deeds. Which is why I said they're dangerous. Like, people, you need to fucking listen. Listen with your eyes and look with your ears. Because that's where this is. This is the reality we're in now. And it cannot be ignored. This is happening right in front of us. It is causing severe damage, causing problems. And I even saw that article briefly. I didn't read it because I'm kind of worried. I could read it. But it does worry me a bit. Let's see, UK preparing for emergencies. Guardian, there's a Guardian article. Britain's preparing for, no, that's not it. Where is it? It's recent. It appeared in the search briefly. Don't know where it is. Why doesn't the news come up with it? It's just like a Guardian. It's probably on the recent. It's not showing up on the news. What the fuck? Okay, let's look at them. US carriers have more strikes on Iran after Trump drops threat of straightforward moves stops. Okay. Well, he's already been asked to stop, so what the fuck gives? Like, you have to use his own strategy against him and, yeah, storm it, fucking get him out by force, and make sure the war stops. Yeah, where is this thing anyway? Trying to find it. Climate crisis, no. Where the fuck is this? Oh, there it is. Britain's urged to take small steps to prepare for potential crisis. It's quite lengthy. Water, power supplies, phone signal, severe weather, emergencies, national crisis, and cyber attacks. This we face with climate change can't be underestimated. Extreme weather, it's calls, yeah, that's true. I would have thought there would have been something about war though. Like, I think the cyber attacks imply that national crisis. There is this one thing about war. As I said, increasingly sophisticated artificial intelligence and the conflicts of the Middle East and Russia's war in Ukraine could enable criminals to carry out hostile cyber attack against businesses and critical infrastructure. Yeah, of course it can. But you enabled it. What the fuck are you on about? You didn't tell Trump to stand down. You didn't tell Israel to stand down. So what do you expect? You only have yourselves to blame. UK government is absolutely fucking stupid. So such a Russia. Let's go scenario planning. Okay. So yeah, again, not good news. Lagging behind other countries. Nice. When it came to stocking up supplies of critical medicines. Okay. Yeah, shit. I do think one of the things that I will say is I'd offer my fucking organs up to someone who's obviously fighting a good fight, so not a fucking reform voter or even UK military. I don't even trust them. I'd offer it to someone worthwhile. If I ever got in this situation, I'll just struck with a fucking drone or something and I still have recoverable organs. Give it to someone young who knows the world, who's green and stuff. Yeah, because I don't have much to live for in this world. I'm too stressed out anyway, so there's so much to lose by just letting me live. So I don't understand it. Yeah, I was so fed up. This is a thing. If I can't prep to survive, then if people can't afford to survive, then what are we supposed to fucking do? It makes no sense. Again, it just seems like nobody has a clue how to run the country and nobody has a clue how to prepare either. Stocking up on water itself is, I don't know, is a thing. The problem is we're going to have droughts because of climate change, and if you're not actually going to prepare it for the bigger issue, like I'm trying to think, what do you call it? You need to prepare it for like the other shit, because things are just going to get bad. You need to prepare climate change measures like cutting off fossil fuels entirely, encouraging people to cycle places to work, providing that as well, also only allowing specific things to drive, so buses and bikes obviously, and taxis if that's even an option, obviously emergency vehicles, and less cars on the road the better. But I think a lot of people need to understand that we need urgent change. Like, we don't give a fuck about your ability to get to work, whether or not that's by car or not. Something has to change, otherwise it will change for you, if that makes sense. Again, it's an emergency, so you can't disregard these facts. When we're heading for droughts, when we're heading for a food crisis, which yes will happen because animals are dying in our wild culture as a result of temperatures, and our crops are dying as a result of the extreme temperatures and lack of rain. What do you expect is going to happen? Like, answer that for me, geniuses. What's the climate deniers? Answer that. What do you think is going to fucking happen? There's no infinite food supply cheat. Nowhere, as far as I'm aware of it. Again, it's ridiculous. And what else is there? I'm trying to think. Yeah, we just need change, I think. If you vote a fucking idiot like Nigel Farage or Rupert Lowe or Ron Kemi Badenoch, to be honest, or even just Labour, you got the worst coming for you. Because that's just what's going to happen. The country's not going to sustain that sort of bullshit. It's just not, neither is the world. The world needs to wake up too. I've already sort of said in my panic about getting rid of CEOs and corrupt governments, because we need it now. We need something to change now, rather than later. That's the biggest fucking warning I can ever give. It's literally a threat level where your deaths are kind of imminent. It's almost as if a meteor is about to strike, except it's the government and the CEOs and stuff, the corrupt billionaires, wherever it is, it's just fucking everyone over. You know, this is the warning call. If nothing changes now, then nothing will. Yeah, it's gonna end up with your deaths, and that's gonna be the only change. Because we're just being fucked over. It's like a mass extinction, in a sense. Like, it's literally heading that way. Sea levels will rise, again, food we won't have. There's just going to be so many fucking problems, and we'll see a bunch of idiots trying to solve the problems, like I sort of predicted before, I think. There are going to be people on TikTok saying that, oh, you can gather this river water and drink it, it's safe. And then people drink a bunch of contaminated river water and they know this sucks and everyone's dead. And then after that, they have the, what was it? They have a solution for the contaminated drinking water. And yeah, it just goes on and on, it's the same shit again. They think they can cleanse it, they think they can make it drinkable, they think they can even grow plants. It's just fuck off. Are you serious? It just doesn't make sense. This is how absurd everything is and how it will get absurd. Keep that in mind. Because this is the sort of world we're headed for. It is literally the reality that we'll start witnessing. We are in the darkest days, and I was sort of thinking of like maybe I don't get the things I need, like paying for it and stuff, but maybe I do now, because even if I can't afford it, well, fuck you. Because the world is ending. I might as well live it whilst I can. Keep doing what I'm doing, or try to do it. Because I don't see much positive change happening in the course of the next few months, especially. Just feeling so fucking depressed about this shit. So yeah, I don't know what else to add really. It feels becoming shit, so let's move on. I think I better do an outro. Thanks for listening, see everyone next time.